Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with Ripe for Reissue. Now, some of these things may be available separately, but the thing I'm really talking about is the whole box, yay, of Bach organ music played by Christopher Herrick on Metzler organs in Switzerland. You've got to have your Metzler organs in Switzerland, don't you? The organs specifically being the Pfarrkirche St. Nikolaus in Bremgarten, and then the Pfarrkirche St. Michael in Keisten, and the Jesuitenkirche in Luzern, and the Stadtkirche St. Martin in Rheinfelden, and the Pfarrkirche St. Peter und Paul in Vilmergen, and finally the Stadtkirche Zolfingen. Now, let's face it. You aren't going to be hanging out in Bremgarten, Keisten, Lucerne, Rheinfelden, Vilmergen, or Zolfingen anytime soon. So if you can't go there and listen to Bach played on those organs, you have this on Hyperion. It's a fabulous set. How many discs is it? 16. 16 compact discs. Ooh, wow. It's a very, very complete set of Bach organ music. You know, the thing about the Bach organ music is that a lot of it is of indeterminate authorship. Even the famous Toccata and Fugue in D minor, there's question as to whether or not it's really by Bach. But my feeling about that is that no one cares about organ music anyway, and so people do care about Bach. So if you want to get all the best organ music from the entire Baroque period, you might as well say it's by Bach. That way people will listen to it. And if it is by Bach or not by Bach, who cares? I mean, if it's by, Johannes Schlumpenmeister, how many Schlumpenmeister fans are there going to be, right? Might as well be by Bach. So anyway, Bach sort of is the clearinghouse for organ music of that period, because what we know he did write is just unbelievably astonishing. Now, why is this out of print? That's the question. Hyperion, before they got sold, was always a little bit abstemious in its production of box sets, and it didn't keep them around for very long. It really didn't. Now, I just looked on Amazon, and this one is now there from third-party sellers. It's not available as a regular release, and it was selling for $364, which is it was nuts. But a lot of individual discs are still hanging around from this series. I mean, Herrick is just an absolutely marvelous organist, first of all. He is sumptuously recorded in all of these venues. It was his recording of the Bach trio sonatas that really, really knocked my socks off. And I talked about those pieces many, many times and have said over and over again, to get started with Bach, you should hear his organ trios, because they are the essence of contrapuntal beauty. They really are. And from there, you can listen to as much of the rest of it as you want. I know organ music is an odd thing. And the nice thing about these performances is that he does use one brand, one type of organ, and an organ that is, at least in its outward configuration, fairly consistent with the kind of things that Bach was using himself. But I hesitate to even say that, because you don't want to limit the approaches to Bach's organ music, which is just, perpetual and eternal, and insist that there's only one authentic organ, or this nonsense, we know that Bach loved the instrument and was interested and participated in its development and in creating new organ stops and all kinds of stuff like that. So you cannot limit the kind of sounds that you get from the organ when you're playing Bach. You have to just use your imagination and use the registrations that the divine will seems to demand. But what really bothers me about the fact that this is out of print is that, there was a historical sort of Bach coterie. There were, back in the day, when I was just starting out in this biz in the 60s or thereabouts. I was starting out in life in the 60s. In this biz, it was a little bit longer, the early 80s, but okay. The point is, there was the old generation of Bach organists, and I'm talking about in stereo, mind you, stereo. I mean, there was earlier stuff in mono too, but life in Bach began with Helmut Walcha, of course, the great Bach organist. German guy was blind. He was a little stodgy, but he was really a marvelous musician, at least in the organ music. And then, oh, God, I got a little thing there. Having dinner with my nephew tomorrow, probably. Anyway, so there's that. And then, there was Marie Claire Alain, who did the complete Bach organ music 2 or 3 times. And there was André Isoire, who was hard to get. He was on the label Calliope. And, people like that. And they were great. They were wonderful. They did beautiful, beautiful Bach organ music stuff. And then you had sort of the next generation, the other groups who, once LPs and CDs and things started happening, particularly LPs, and they remade all of that stuff. And so Marie Claire Alain, of course, did more. And you had Peter Herford, and you had Christoph Herrick, and then the period instrument people got in, and you got Simon Preston, and a bunch of other people. And there's now a bazillion complete sets of Bach organ music, and many of them are absolutely superb. And there was who else was there? Ton Koopman, I think, did a set, and really, really, really fine. And some of them used authentic Baroque organs, and they used supposedly authentic performance practice and whatnot. But there are wonderful, wonderful sets, and lots of choice, if, of course, they would keep them in print. The problem was, I think, that there were just too many, and so they all basically killed themselves, and they didn't last long in the catalog. And this is one of the great ones. I mean, it really is. It's absolutely marvelous, and I mean, I return to it frequently when I'm in the mood for Bach organ music, which is actually, a little bit more frequently than some of you might think. I don't usually play a lot of it at once. I tend to be very selective. I take one piece, one work, a couple of works, and enjoy them individually, and then I put it away for a little while because I find the tone of the organ to be fatiguing in large quantities. But it's a beautiful set, and damn it, it should never have been deleted. So it is ripe for reissue. And it's not going to happen. Who are we kidding? Do try and listen to it. You can download some of it or stream it. Now that the Hyperion catalog is streamable, maybe you can find some and sample it at your leisure. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks so much for joining me. Take care.